to Yahoo Style UK's brand new video series, Still Her Job. We're going to be talking to tons of cool women with even cooler careers to find out how you can get their jobs and follow in their career footsteps. Today we're very lucky to have Sara Blonstein. She's the founder of production company Blonstein, and they put together a lot of the shows at London Fashion Week as well as many other fashion events in the capital. Thank you for joining us today, Sara.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Do you want to check out my shoes first? I think they need a little
One,
airing.
yeah,
Don't you
they
think?
need a zoom in.
And it is raining
shot.
today.
Perfect shoe for the rain. So you founded your company in 1989, is that right?
I did, yes.
And can you tell me a bit more about how you got your beginnings in the fashion industry?
I didn't actually get my beginnings in the fashion, strictly in the fashion industry. I was doing fine art at university, and I wanted to be a filmmaker. And it was really mad. It was the 80s and it was ridiculous. And I went to this very arty art school and it wasn't anything like real life. So I came back to London and tried to get some work in the film business. And then I ended up working for Zig Zig Sputnik.
Okay, yeah.
And through them, I used to have to look after Martin Degville, who was the lead singer at the time. And we used to go to all the clubs, all the underground clubs in London. And I got very involved in the club scene. I could get into any guest list, any door, any VIP thing. And that went on for quite a few years. And while that was happening, I became a stylist, actually. So it was fashion-ish, but it was on the film side. So I styled Bros, who are playing at Wembley on Sunday. And I styled these other bands, probably no one's even heard of them, like 10 City, Inner City, Alison Limerick, Kim Mazel. I mean, it was loads of stuff that I did of that era, that kind of sort of slightly housey, but kind of sort of not too ravey, you know, that end. And other pop stuff. And then from there, I decided, because we were shooting in these really amazing empty venues. London was full of empty spaces at the time because there was no money really in London. It's very different now. There's so much construction, everything's done. But then there was these empty buildings everywhere and we were shooting in a lot of them. And I suddenly thought, hang on a minute, if we're shooting in them, why can't we have parties in them? So from that sort of the club thing and the crowd that I'd got in with, I started doing these very unique parties in derelict spaces, but they were extravaganzas. They were amazing things, and you bought tickets, and they weren't raves. They were a lot more glamorous than that in these buildings. And then slowly but surely, people started hearing about what we're doing. There was a lot of stuff on TV as well. I was interviewed quite a few times what we were doing. And then Channel 4 was my first corporate client.
Oh, okay.
And then I started doing all the parties with Channel 4, Sky TV, MTV. And this went on for about 8 or 9 years. And then from that, first fashion show came. Probably at least 8 or 9 years later. I'd already moved east to East London, and I knew the East End. So again, I was on the forefront of another area of London. Before then, it was like Soho, derelict buildings. Then I moved to the East End. I knew the East End, and one of my friends said Hussein Chalayan would like to do a fashion show in East London. Which was very unusual in those days because everything was at the Natural History Museum and it was all west. And in a derelict space, you know, queen of derelict spaces. And so I found the venue, which was at the Truman Brewery. And we did Hussein Chalayan's probably second big show, you know, the first time in London. And that kind of launched his career. And then from that point on, by doing that show, we kind of launched the Truman Brewery as a fashion centre. And then, am I going on too much?
No.
And then Lulu Kennedy, who started Fashion East, who you should interview for this actually, she got the impetus to start Fashion East because of my first Hussein Chalayan show. And then she started Fashion East, and then all the East End designers started being, you know, living in East London. And then we started producing all the Fashion East shows. So we did, I think, 18 seasons with Fashion East.
Wow,
and
that's a long time.
That was the start.
That's how I got into it. And you've got like a big list of clients now. Can you just tell me a bit more about those?
Well, we produce everything that the BFC produces for Fashion Week, men's and women's. So there's about 23 to 25 designers a season in men's and women's. So the list is like really, really long. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start. It's like everyone who shows at the BFC space.
Okay.
We also do stuff. We've been working with Roxander for 8 years. So we've produced all Roxander's shows for 8 years. We still work with a lot of other kind of brands that are, I call lifestyle. So it's not strictly fashion. So we work with Jameson Whiskey, Absolute Vodka, people like that. So it's a kind of mixture of things. But I suppose our main thing at the moment, because we're working with BFC, is the fashion side, because we're producing the exhibition and all their presentations and the shows and everything.
So you said you're the queen of derelict spaces. How do you transform a derelict space into something for a show?
Well, there's some really key nuts and bolts stuff that you've just got to do. So forget all the pretty stuff, right? The first thing you've got to do is power. And you know this from film bits, right? So power is absolutely the first. And actually, that's rubbish. I'm talking rubbish. Actually, you do go in and you get all creative, and then you go, oh God, where's the power coming from?
Start with the basics.
So power is absolutely essential. So you've got to get that sorted. Another thing you've got to get sorted is toilets.
Really important.
Another thing you've got to get sorted, especially for these really big shows, because we're seating like 700 people for the really big shows. And it costs a lot of money, this bit. This bit's quite scary. And I never used to do it years ago, but we do have to do it now. Aircon. Oh my God.
Another important thing.
Yeah.
No passing out.
And then you can get all creative and gorgeous. And one of the nicest things about derelict spaces is don't try and cover it all up. It's about working with the space and creating something architectural and beautiful that works, with the space.
Yeah.
White walling everything is just not the way to go.
No.
It's not the way to go.
And are there many spaces like that still left in London?
No,
not
it is, honestly, there was tons in the 80s, there were tons in the 90s, and there started being less and less and less and less. We lost a huge one recently, which was the old sorting office just down the road from here, which was really sad. There's so many that just don't exist anymore, and they're outside London. I mean, not outside London, but central London. Like there's one in SE, it's near off Jamaica Road.
Oh, yeah.
Called the Print Works, which I think is absolutely fantastic, and you do the best shows in there, but it's just too far at the moment,
For anyone to get to.
Yeah.
So do you have to be more creative now if a client wants something that looks like a derelict space and there's
derelict
not
spaces?
really,
obviously we can do it at 180, because 180 is derelict, so that's actually a good place to be for British Fashion Council at the moment, for that edgy feel. A lot of the designers that we've got are young and edgy, so that really suits them. If people ask, it is. If someone says I want a derelict space,
I don't know.
What if you're just going to invent one? That's going to be fun. So you try and think of something else. For example, Roxander. I can't say where her show's going to be yet. Probably this will come out probably just before her show is. But we've had to go away from that. So we've gone into a different direction, which is still really unusual and it's still really different. I think when people want a show outside of the normal Fashion Week hub, they want something different.
Yeah.
It's the flip. It's the flip side. So maybe now Fashion Week's in a derelict space, they're
not going to want that.
The others can flip again. I mean, it's also because the buildings aren't there, to be honest. I tell you what is very good, though, is that there's a lot of new builds. And if you can get into a new build before they've done anything, you do have dereliction. And you also have power and toilets.
Too.
So they're really good. So actually new builds are like, oh no, you try and make friends with the developers,
And how long does it take to put together a fashion show? The space for that?
Well, Roxander's show, honestly, we have been talking and looking for venues for, I think it's been going on since the last show, which was in February. Not non-stop, it's not like we've been working on it. But I think that we have been working particularly on this show with Roxander, from March. Seriously, we looked at so many venues, and now we've got the venue. We're working out some things that are quite complicated, it can take ages. You can also do it quite quickly.
Yeah.
It depends. You can throw everybody at it and sort of get something done in 3 or 4 weeks. it's funny though. It doesn't really matter about the budget. The budget can be huge or it can be small. If you're going to make sure that everything runs as you want it to run, it actually can take the same amount of time, like a titchy budget and a massive budget.
That's interesting. Yeah,
that's really interesting,
yeah.
but that is absolutely true. That is true.
And what elements would you say a great show has to have to make it great?
I think, well, I know this is, I should say, I'm going to put this first, because if I don't, I'm an absolute cow. But the clothes have got to be great, right? I don't want to say it's all about the production. Yeah, it's all about production. Forget the clothes. No, clothes have got to be great. I mean, it's funny enough, we did a very small show in our presentation space at 180. God, I can't remember the designer. This is useless, but it's good, isn't it? I'm not bigging up that one designer.
Don't worry.
Can't remember menswear designer. Oh God, can't remember his name. Anyway, the point is that there's nothing in that presentation space. It's really simple. There's some wall lights, black floor, white ceiling. So simple, but the clothes were extraordinary. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everyone said it. There was lots of top editors there, and they were like, "Ooh, that was a good show, wasn't it? That was a good show." But what you always have to have, as well as the clothes, is music is key. Yeah, music is absolutely key, and drama. There's a lot that goes into the pacing, how the lights come on and off. I'm saying even with the simplest things, how the lights come on and off.
Yeah, for sure.
What happens at finale, how the models walk, the pacing of the models, how the finale works. That's the most simplest things that you have to worry about. Now, that's a simple show. If you're going for something a lot more dramatic, then it's location, whatever's happening, whether that's derelict or whether that's something, oh my God, I can't believe they got this. So that you get that thing, because actually a show is only 10 minutes long at the most, so a lot of the stuff is people just hanging out, seriously, so a lot of it is that, so there is that kind of social element beforehand, and then the show, then it's about, is there a set? What happens? Is there something weird that something happens in that set? Is it live music? We had live music actually last season. Michael Nyman played live. It was absolutely fantastic. It's things like that. What is the thing that captures you for those 7.5, 8 minutes? Then is the finale. What captures you? And you have to, don't forget, they're going from show to show to show to show to show. So you've got to have capture the imagination, and it's got to be memorable. And of course the clothes, they have to look great. And the models, sorry, I'm being a bit mean again about models. I love models. I think they're absolutely fantastic. They are super clever. No, don't anyone tell you that a model is not clever. They are super clever, because they have to turn it on, walk out there with hardly any rehearsal, and emulate that brand for that time. And that, I'm sorry, that is a super clever, switched on person who happens to be beautiful at the same time. And models are very important. When you do a good show, all the models should be the same height. If it's not a good show, if the heights are varying, and they need to have a very similar look. Yeah. And that also gives you this, je ne sais quoi bit to the show. So the casting is terribly important, but models are super fantastic and make a show as well.
And how big is the whole team that puts together a show?
Well, we have 100 working for Blonstein on site some days.
That's very big.
I know.
It's a lot bigger than I was expecting that big, yeah.
But core team isn't that big. When we're starting things up, it's 8 to 10 people.
Okay, yeah.
So core team is small, and it's really nice because we've got an open plan office, and it means that we can literally go, oh, I'm really worried about this. What should we do about it? And then someone, just across the desk will go, oh no, I've sorted that. It's fine. And you go, oh great, so I don't have to write 20 emails. No, fine, okay, that's done. So it's things like that. We're all in our own separate
little bits you can't really talk to anyone.
To each other. So
and a lot of people think the fashion industry is very glamorous, which of course there are fun sides to it. And I think people think a lot of people earn a lot of money. Can you reveal kind of like what people in your field could potentially earn?
I think people can earn an enormous amount of money if they work for Louis Vuitton or Kering or something. It's big one brands, of the big French brands. Tommy Hilfiger probably earns an absolute fortune. Licensing, lipsticks. That end is massive. Some stylists earn a lot of money. Some of the big advertising stylists, I think they're on a fair bit of money. When I say a lot of money, I mean it's in the thousands per day. Okay. But actually, I don't think the fashion industry is a big earner. It's a love of what you do. Obviously, PRs hardly earn anything. I think the young PRs are on very little money. Some of the girls who are starting in my office are not on fantastic. It's not bad, it's not bad, and they normally get more when they're on site.
Yeah, for sure.
Which means when we're building it and when we're running it, because the hours are weird and long. And then there's sort of the in-between money. I think designers struggle in this country. I think they have a wonderful time. They get invited to, these wonderful parties, and they, as we said, it's quite glamorous and fun. But I know a lot of designers really struggle. Unless they get a licensing deal with one of the big companies again. That's what you've got to do. If you're really talking strict fashion, I think it's not a great earner. It's not bad. It's not like, nothing. But it's not like, oh my God, everyone's swilling around in tons of dosh.
No, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And do you think anything in the fashion industry needs to change in London to help people a bit?
Well, more investment, I suppose. More investment so people could think bigger.
Yeah.
And think about more global branding things, because that's where you make the money. The money is about like all the big brands, the Chanels and the Vuittons and everyone else. All their money is in the handbags, the sunglasses. That's where the money is. Gucci, yeah?
Yeah.
So for our designers, they are the kind of the hatchlings of these wonderful ideas, and their ideas come out and they put their ideas on the runways, and it influences a lot of the other designers too, the bigger designers. And so I think that they need more investment in them to enable them to think bigger and then do what some of these other brands can do when they've got the money behind them.
And I think there's a stereotype that working with fashion designers is like very difficult because they're very creative people. They can be quite hard to get along with. Do you ever find that at all?
No, I mean, some people anyone who's stressed, right, in whatever line of work, it's very stressful. Fashion shows, you get no rehearsal time. We basically get about 20 minutes with the models. And first looks, it's really stressful. They have to totally rely on us that we've got it, that the lights are going to work, the sound's going to work, that the PRs have done all this. It's a really stressful situation. You get 3 hours backstage.
Okay.
If you've got a bigger show like Burberry, for example, I think they get about 4 or 5 hours with the girls. But then that's still probably 2 hours in hair and makeup or more. So it's still not that long. So I think when people are stressed, they could be awful. But actually, I can't even think of anybody now that's just been that terrible. It's normally the people that work for the designers are worse.
Not them themselves.
Like, somebody who's like, that someone thinks it's their responsibility and the designer's fine. And then there's one guy recently, and Brian, my business partner, had to have a very strong word with him and go, it's not cool how you're behaving, it's not cool. And apparently they're really good friends now. He rings Brian all the time. And no, most of the time they're really lovely, and actually they need an adrenaline. If you don't have any adrenaline backstage, it's not a very good show. So you need that adrenaline, to get everything going.
And what other challenges are there in your job, would you say?
There's never enough money to do everything. yeah, I think even if there was more money, it'd probably still never be enough. You know what I mean?
You always want more.
Yeah, there's never enough money, so you're always making compromises. I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is that there's never enough money. And what else is there? I can't even think of any challenges. I mean, I've got really, really, really good people.
Yeah.
And I think you have to look after those people, and you have to make them feel valued, and make sure that they understand that they're very much part of what you're doing. And if you do that, then you're an organism, all helping. You know, you're doing it together. It's not like falling, like, oh my God, it's all my responsibility or all their responsibility. It's us working together as a moving organism to make it work. And you know, that's the secret, I think.
So we just talked about the difficult bits. What are the best bits of your job?
Oh, it's fabulous when everyone arrives and, you know, hi. That bit's great. And seeing a really amazing show with full production, with full set, amazing things like Charles Jeffrey's show last season.
That was incredible,
amazing. And that was a show where I knew straight away that there was no way we could rehearse that in the time. So we did tons of rehearsals beforehand.
Oh, okay.
And we didn't charge extra for that. We just did them, you know. And that was, it's just wonderful seeing that come together.
Yeah.
You know, and that exhilaration of seeing something so creative. And I think that a lot of I think London's known for that. And then you think, oh, I'm really part of something. You know, it's really great to see that creativity and then make it happen for them.
That's what I was going to say. Like, what do you think is so special about London and why you continue to work
It's definitely the creativity of the designers. And people aren't looking for a commercial look. That's not what London's about. No. Which doesn't help on the money side. But then I think there is commerciality in not being commercial. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get
That's just another leap.
Yeah.
But that's when you're talking about sort of licensing and branding, and that which I think is what I think is missing. So you still be creative, but you do something else with your brand, which makes money.
And what's the most memorable event that you've had a hand in throughout your career?
God, I've done so many. Oh God, I wish you'd told me you were asking me that question.
Or you can give a few if you can't think of one. Can't think of any.
I can. I'm just thinking that, I mean, obviously I've got to think of a fashion event, but I'm not going to think of a fashion event first. I think one of the best things we ever did was for a vodka company called Stolly. And we flew the Red Army Choir, 50 of them.
Wow.
We had to negotiate with the Russian government to get them.
Oh my God.
To sing the Russian national anthem, and then they did backing vocals with a Finnish rock band called the something Cowboys. Can't even remember their name now. I can't remember their name. Anyway, it was just the most unbelievable thing ever. I mean, I was like crying, you know, it was just the most, you know, these 50 Russian soldiers, you know, and then we revealed them. No one knew they were. It looked like, I did it so it looked like a record player.
Oh, that's really cool.
Massive stage. It was in this derelict building in Hammersmith, which I think is a hotel now. And it was these old Russian people put on a record player. And then we revealed 50 Red Army in their uniform. Oh my God, it was completely mad. Anyway, so that was really good. And fashion-wise, do you know what? That Michael Nyman thing was pretty amazing last season with Roxanda. He was so funny. He was like, I don't need to rehearse. I was like, what do you mean you don't need to rehearse? I don't need to rehearse. I'm just going to turn up. Oh, God. Really? Yes.
What's this going to be like?
So we did a little walkthrough, and then I just stood next to him. And he's going, what's happening now? Okay, fine. This is the bit where you changed a bit. I'm going to change it to that bit, okay? He goes, okay, fine. So I said, that's it. There's no more. The rehearsal you didn't want. Well, that was the only bit of the rehearsal that you didn't want. And he was like, okay. And I was like, oh, God.
This is why we need to rehearse.
But he was absolutely brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. So that was a really, really amazing fashion moment as well, an event moment. I'm just trying to think, there's definitely more. If Brian was here, he'd go, oh, what about
this, about that?
after we finish this interview, of course, I'll think
You'll think of it. That always happens. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you do something that you no one else said you could do.
Yeah.
And then you pull it off, and it's really amazing, you know.
And to finish off, what's the main advice you have for someone who wants to do the exact same job as you?
Well, this is how my assistant now got in, and Faye is wonderful. She came as an intern. She must have approached either someone in my company or come through info or something, or me. The CV, I normally send the CV straight on to the producers. They normally read them, and Faye's obviously stuck out. Faye came and worked on a low wage at London Fashion Weekend, which was what it was called at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't even notice her, to be honest. And Laura said to me, that girl Faye was really good. And I was like, oh, really? She was really good. She was really good. I think we should get her back. So I was like, okay. So we got her back. And then Laura said to me, I think you should have her as your PA. So I was like, really? Do you think? She went, yeah. So we got her in, and she's just amazing. So, and that's how it works.
That's how it works, yeah.
Start
from the bottom.
That's how it works. Starts at the bottom. That's how it works.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us today, Sara. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching.